The father witnessed his daughter being slapped hard right before his very eyes. He fixed a cold, piercing stare upon the man who had just struck his daughter. But then, the man simply walked out of the room, acting as if absolutely nothing had occurred. However, once he was outside, he made an excuse to his family, claiming his phone was left at the game arcade and he needed to go back to retrieve it. He then broke down the door and went to confront the person who had harmed his daughter. In that instant, he was no longer the gentle, ordinary father he once was. He had transformed into a highly trained killing machine. In less than 5 minutes, he had completely transformed the entire game arena. He was then questioned by the local police authorities. The officers warned him not to cause any more trouble, and the man was ultimately set free. Just when he thought the trouble was finally over, the very next day he took his family to an amusement park only to spot a group of police officers watching them closely. He quickly realized that these individuals weren't going to simply let him off the hook. For the sake of his family's safety, he immediately reached out to a trusted friend. His friends then informed him that the game attendant actually had connections far more intricate and powerful than he could have ever imagined. He's the second in command of the city's largest gang. He has very close connections with the police, and their leader, Londina, is much more terrifying. Unlike traditional gangs, Londina established her empire solely through acts of cruelty. The man's friend advised him to stop and protect his family. "Do you have an address or any information at all?" the man asked. "I'll give you one hint, but listen very carefully. After this moment, you are completely on your own." Having found out that the guards and police were getting ready to move the shipment, he approached the warehouse carrying a single jerry can of gasoline. Without any hesitation, he doused the piles of goods and all the money with the fuel, then he coldly threatened them. If the money and cargo were to go up in flames, not only would the place be ruined, but his boss, Londina, would certainly be furious. A chilling silence enveloped the room. The man then made a simple demand. He just wanted a break, a safe vacation with his family. He didn't want the problem to escalate, but the police and the guard just sneered. Some of his men were already hospitalized because of that man. It was clear he wasn't an ordinary father, the police said, and the idea of de-escalating the situation was a joke. When the man raised the lighter, ready to burn the money soaked in gasoline, the officer's face finally darkened. The police officer then said, "All right, you're quite fortunate today," and he ordered him to leave this very instant, or he would truly finish him off. However, as the man turned to walk away, he noticed a young boy, bound and stumbling out from inside the vehicle. A moment of doubt was visible in his eyes, but he knew perfectly well what the outcome would be if he chose to do absolutely nothing. He brutally beat the guards and police. Amidst the chaos, the gasoline-soaked money finally ignited. The injured man ran out of the flames, carrying the boy. The burning fuel and exploding chemicals consumed the entire warehouse yard. Meanwhile, when Londina received the news, she erupted like a volcano. The money and chemicals were destroyed. She stared at the screen, seeing the figure of that seemingly ordinary man. Londina said, "Who is that person?" Her assistant replied, "There is no data or information on this person." Meanwhile, on the same occasion, the woman was lying on the bed. Unintentionally, she found the mobile phone of her husband who had passed away. As she was attempting to charge the mobile phone, the officer investigating her husband's death arrived at her house. The officer then inquired if she had seen her late husband's phone. Before she could utter a single word, the phone's display suddenly connected to the television screen. On the television, a recording of the crime scene then emerged, and the perpetrator was none other than the very police officer standing directly in front of her. The moment the police officer turned away, Elsa quickly switched the screen and calmly stated that she hadn't seen the mobile phone. After the officer had departed, Elsa immediately placed a call to Frank, the man who was accused of her husband's death. She informed him that she had not only discovered her husband's cell phone, but also uncovered proof that the female police officer was the actual killer. However, Elsa was completely unaware that their conversation was being wiretapped by that suspicious policewoman. Soon after Frank met Elsa and took the phone, the police successfully tracked their location through the intercepted call. As Frank was about to take the evidence to the police station, that officer pretended to be chasing a fugitive and then followed Frank. The officer shot Frank. The officer took advantage of Frank's pain to quietly approach him and steal the phone. Frank was then taken to the female officer's hospital. Lisa came to ask about Frank's phone, which her superior had taken. But suddenly, the female officer attacked Lisa. She pointed a gun at her. Hearing the commotion, another officer arrived, but that officer shot him and intended to blame Lisa as the perpetrator. Seeing the chaotic situation, Frank then struck the officer from behind, knocking him unconscious. The two of them then escaped from the hospital through the window, leaving no evidence behind. Frank and Lisa could only sit, slumped helplessly on the sofa, engulfed in utter despair, their faces plastered across the news as wanted fugitives. As they were at a loss, completely unsure what to do, Frank, an electronics technician, suddenly remembered that televisions have an automatic storage function that can record previously played videos. Sure enough, they found the crucial evidence on Elsa's TV. Both immediately rushed to the police station, carrying the television, intending to hand over this vital proof to the lawyer. However, before they even had a chance to enter the building, they spotted the lawyer standing right there with the female police officer, the murderer. It was clear that the two of them were in cahoots, but that very fact gave Frank an even better idea. He entered the police station's control room and then connected the television to the common broadcast system. In an instant, every monitor screen throughout the entire building began to display the police officer's criminal act footage. The entire scene was witnessed directly by the police chief himself, who was just descending from the elevator, and he promptly took the female officer into custody. Frank's fugitive status was subsequently removed, while Lisa was reinstated to her duties as a police officer. Elsewhere, at the same moment, this girl lit a firecracker in her mouth and casually tossed it into the yard when the guards were off guard. She easily snuck into the museum using a bicycle, but this time, she didn't steal recklessly. He removed his coat, then proceeded to an office, and with a single swift motion, he successfully acquired a painting valued at $2 million. However, he absolutely had to return it before nightfall to ensure his elaborate plan remained flawless. Ellie kept practicing negotiating by herself, talking to herself, then rehearsing how to leave with the painting. Later, when the buyer begged her to stay, Ellie would flip the suitcase. Inside the suitcase were both the real and fake paintings, alternating. That way, she could deceive them perfectly. At the transaction site, the appraiser confirmed that the painting was authentic. But suddenly, Ellie changed her mind, saying that she no longer wanted to sell it. The buyer became extremely angry, feeling completely manipulated. Ellie quickly claimed she was just kidding, while discreetly swapping the suitcase holding the genuine painting for the counterfeit one. The buyer then proceeded to pay $800,000. The moment she got outside, Ellie didn't dare to stop for even a single second. He immediately stepped on the gas and sped away from that place, and he then returned the original painting to the museum. Meanwhile, the buyer was still completely lost in his happiness. He could even smell the distinctive aroma of that painting. That's impossible. It's a fake.
Oh, that's right.
That's a fake!
To recoup his losses, the buyer finally called the best assassin. This man's name was Jason. On every mission, he never left anyone alive, not even a mosquito. Jason planned to take out Ellie in a secluded place, but as he followed her, Jason was repeatedly shocked. Ellie stole from everywhere she went, even the small flower shop on the street corner wasn't spared. Eventually, the girl went into the dressing room, and Jason sensed this was the very opportunity he had been waiting for. Hearing a distinct sound from within, he confidently got ready to fire his weapon at her. But Ellie, dressed in new clothes, quietly slipped out through a different door. Jason continued to follow Ellie throughout the entire evening. He had numerous opportunities to pull the trigger, but every single time, something always seemed to hinder him. When his patience finally ran out, he planned to attack her directly, but the girl suddenly stopped at a hotel. After overhearing her room number, Jason immediately headed to the building across the street. He prepared his rifle and aimed his sights directly at Ellie's room. But then, a man suddenly appeared and calmly switched off the room's light. Jason finally installed a bugging device, then cleaned his weapon while listening to the sounds from that room. When Jason awoke, the sun had already risen and Ellie had just stirred awake. He once again raised his rifle, his gaze fixed on Ellie, who quite casually picked up a glass of someone else's juice, took a small sip, and then set it down on a different table. Confronted by this enchanting young woman, Jason, a hitman known for never failing his missions, found himself lowering his weapon instead. She had genuinely believed her mother would support her decision to pursue true love, but her mother, to her surprise, ended up scolding her quite fiercely. Her mother even went on to declare, "If your father were still alive, he would surely cast you out, poor Jason."